Hi and welcome to Leaders Under Crisis, a series of interviews with business leaders and CEOs about managing companies and businesses during the global COVID-19 pandemic. And our first interview today will be with Stephen McCarthy, the CEO of the Malta Digital Innovation Authority. Join us. Stephen, welcome to the show. So let's start talking a little bit about the Malta Digital Innovation Authority. What is the exact role of the MDIA?
Well, basically, it has several roles, MDIA. First of all, we act as a consultant to the government and government agencies and even sometimes corporations regarding innovative technology. Then there's the role that we certify the technology itself. And now we have been entrusted also with the role of leading the AI strategy. AI strategy, which was launched last year, and which there are 72 deliverables. And there are 6 main deliverables, which are pretty exciting and interesting. For example, one of the case study which we're doing is we identified a junction with the Transport Malta. And we're using AI so that the lights of this junction will work according to the traffic that there is in that junction, and not just through timing as usual. There is education. We have an application whereby students are assisted with an application according to their level. For example, if you have a mathematical problem and the individual student in the class is not able to work out that problem, then the application automatically goes to a lower level until it finds its level. So there are basically 6 very interesting AI applications. Obviously, then there is the role of the certification of distributed ledger technology, namely blockchain. This is something which is important and important for me to clarify, because there has been discussions and in the newspapers, etc. One has to keep in mind that we certify the technology, distributed ledger technology, but we are not the authority which certifies all blockchain applications. And as you know, 2 years ago, when this authority was launched and also the blockchain island was launched, the majority of the applications and the operators were in the finance area. They were finance related. And in that particular case, they fall under the regime of the VFA, the virtual financial assets. And those operators fall within the licensing regime of the MFSA. So we're not the authority which certify these operators, So you must ask the question, so what is your role in all of this? Well, our role is that we certify, however, the underlying technology. But this is only if, when it comes to finance-related applications, as I said, MFSA is the lead authority. But MFSA could, if it wants, require certification for the underlying technology if it feels that there is the risk and the need for this certification. And that is where we come in. So basically, as I said, the majority of the applications are finance related. They're not non-finance related. And those fall within the remit of MFSA. And the license has to come from MFSA, not from MDIA. But other blockchain applications which are not finance related, then they can come to us for certification. But in this particular case, contrary to the VFA, it's not mandatory. It's voluntary, and they can come to us on a voluntary basis. In fact, we have some applications which we're reviewing at the very moment.
Okay, thank you, Stephen, for that very important introduction. Tell us about your organization right now. What is the effect of COVID-19, perhaps in terms of its impact on human resources?
First of all, let me tell you the effect it had on our organization and organizations which are technology-based like us. From day one, we have a paperless office. So technically, it did not affect us that much, I must admit. On the contrary, I feel that companies like us who are technology-based, and where the employees are technology savvy, the workload has increased. Basically, I feel that since we've been teleworking due to the pandemic, I feel that we have increased, funnily enough, we have increased our output with the way that we are working. What we have done this by, first of all, we focused on the health of the employees. That is paramount. We increased the remote working, obviously. We're making more frequent meetings and discussions. But the fact that everything, all paper that we had and that we used was digitalized made it very, very easy, including the payments, etc. So I must admit that for us, it didn't affect us that much. And I'm sure that technology-based companies like us were not affected that much with respect to the output and efficiency. One thing I want to conclude on this is that, if anything, we have learned to use the technology more ourselves. Like, for example, conferencing, we don't need to go all those international conferencing. Why? We did it through video conference and we achieved the results just the same. So why the hassle of going abroad to America, to Asia, so even us that we are technology based and we were sort of ready for remote working, we have learned that we can use technology more.
Stephen, you've preempted my question here. How do you think is this revolution of teleconferencing, remote working affecting other workplaces, perhaps not as technologically savvy as yours, but perhaps more used to a kind of physical space in terms of the office?
Let us put it this way. I wouldn't say sort of a revolution, but I would say that we have to totally think in a different manner after all this. First of all, we have learned many things from all this. We have learned that we can increase our output, we can become more efficient. We have to take care of to have an operating standard procedure in place, so that when we're working remotely, it becomes even easier. So at the end of the day, I feel that even companies who are not technology based, they are learning from this. Let me give you one slight example. I mean, there were areas where I feel that we, even as a country, it was lacking. Online shopping, for example, online shopping and the delivery system. I mean, that is an area that we have to learn from it. We have to learn to improve on it, and especially when it comes to the delivery, because there's no point having an online system and then the delivery comes in 2 weeks' time when we're in a small country like Malta. So it's not only us that have learned, but other companies. And I hope that the lesson is learned and we will act upon it.
Yes, in fact, Stephen, do you see any winners or losers in this situation? I mean, if we had to imagine the medium to long term, with this change in business practices, you just mentioned online shopping and deliveries, which businesses will be the winners and losers in this kind of scenario? Do you think that will return back to normal with business as usual, with things as they were right before?
You have mentioned a very important point, Matthew. It worries me a little bit, to be honest with you, to see people, organizations, saying that very soon we'll come back to normal. That's not the situation. I mean, let us put it straight. It's not the situation. The world would be totally different. We're going to have effect from an economy point of view. We're going to have an effect of unemployment, probably. An increase in unemployment probably would be, strangely enough, accompanied by inflation. And the reason for it is that what governments are doing at the moment is they're printing money. When I say printing money, not in the sense of the old sense of printing literally money, but in the sense that they're giving out loans and subsidies in order to increase the liquidity. Now, if that is not matched by productivity, obviously you're going to be in a situation whereby prices must increase. So it's going to be a totally different scenario. And in the case of Malta, because we're a small island, first of all, we have a very important sector is going to be hit, definitely, which is the tourism sector. But more than that, Matthew, we have to realize that if there's unemployment all around us, okay, people don't have the money, the disposable income to travel. So winners or losers, there will be some winners in all this. Those who use technology in an efficient way. There will be giant tech companies which will be winners, such as Zoom, etc. But there will be definitely a lot of losers. And we have to really take care of that. The government, Matthew, already was quick, in my opinion, in softening the impact, because the measures that were put in by the government were rapid, more than anything else. And as you can see, it softened the impact that we have. However, Matt, now we're going to come to a second stage. And now it has to be a different. Personally, now I do not agree by giving blanket financial assistance. I mean, in my opinion, now we have to be surgical in the way we assist companies. The principle, in my opinion, should be that we should assist companies that are efficient and are willing to work as long as possible. Matt, keep in mind that once the pandemic is over, it doesn't mean that the liquidity comes again, as I said. So government, in my opinion, should help those companies as long as is necessary, those efficient companies. However, we must pay attention that other companies, that are not efficient, we should let them take its space. In my opinion, we should not put money, put good money to inefficient companies. And that is, in my opinion, that is the way forward, how we should go about dealing with this. The better we do it, Matthew, the quicker the recovery.
Stephen, however, we're also in a scenario where some companies are also working on a reduced hours setting with some workers. Do you think that even in this scenario, we're going to have leaner, meaner workforces, which will also weed out inefficient workers? So that would mean perhaps lower costs when it comes to human resources, but also with the kind of social consequences that might bring to workers in general.
I wouldn't say that, for example, having a 4-day week will solve the problems. Far from it. I mean, there may be companies which will go to 4-day week if it suits them, but it will not solve the problem. What will solve the problem is a twofold. One, from the point of view of the government, that it's important for the government to identify those companies that are really in need. And companies which, for example, get us foreign currency, that deal in export, because foreign currency is going to become extremely important to improve our balance of payments. But also companies themselves, they need to do their part as well. I mean, let us put it this way. When it comes to companies, Matthew, we cannot promote ourselves in favor of free market. I'm a guy who was always, and is always in favor of the free market system. But we cannot promote free market and say, listen, we are free marketeers, but only when the things are right and we're making profits. And then when things are not right, we expect the government to burden the losses. That's not how we. So it's a two-way, From a government point of view, he has to make the part of the government to assist, as I said, as long as is necessary, to efficient companies. But also companies, like we cannot on one side say, listen. And another thing, Matthew, if you look at the statistics, okay, everybody's talking about liquidity, and I repeat, government should help in the case of liquidity. But government should help to companies that need liquidity, And when it comes to companies, we have about 3.5 billion cash in banks deposits, So we cannot really say that in general Malta has a liquidity problem. On the contrary, we do not have a liquidity problem. Having said that, as I said, government should still support companies that really need support and deserve it.
So how can these businesses also adapt to this kind of reality in terms of reducing costs? And we've just spoken about workers, but what about other costs which they can reduce if we're talking about in the medium to long term, in the preparation for the recovery? What should they be looking at?
What they should be looking at is that they should focus on identifying efficient services and efficient products, and unfortunately do away with those which are inefficient. We have a habit in Malta whereby we seem to put everything in one basket. One product is doing good for the other, just as long as there's profit. It's not on any longer. Given the situation, we really have to focus. And it does not only the individual company benefit, but it will do a lot of good also to the economy. This is something which I hope we will benefit from this negative pandemic. Something whereby there will be an efficient, automatic resource allocation. And this applies to companies, to operations, but also to employees. What's wrong by redirecting resources to where we are most efficient, and I hope that all this, but as I said, this has to be with the help of both the private sector and the government.
And do you see that businesses might struggle as well with a problem with consumer demand, that there will be a dampened appetite to spend, after spending a few months in a soft lockdown, or who knows whether this will take even longer, with incomes being mainly geared to essentials, possibly there's a propensity for saving more. Do you think that this demand disruption will linger on further for businesses?
Yes, Matthew, it will definitely linger on. Demand will be disrupted simply by saying that it is forecasted, although no one can say for now, that Malta will have between 3 to 6% decrease in the GDP. Now everybody's saying, okay, 3%, 3% is a lot. Having a decrease of 3% in the economy, in the GDP, is a lot. And then there are talks of saying, listen, okay, but in 2021, there will be an increase in GDP. But that you have to make a qualification to it, When we say that there will be an increase in GDP in 2021, okay, that after and comparing it to this year, when the GDP has gone down. So in no way we are talking that 2021 will have the same GDP as we're witnessing these last 3 years, So even in 2021, although report would say, listen, then we'll have an increase in GDP, but compared to the previous year of 2020, and that is something to put you in the right perspective. And not to make it seem as if it will be business as usual. No, we will have a recovery. I'm sure of it, because Malta is a small island, and we have one great advantage, which is that we're very flexible. We will have a recovery, but one has to keep in mind the type of recovery and the term that it will take to reach there.
That's a very interesting insight into the resilience of the small economy. Let's turn a little bit to more personal matters. What is the kind of mindset that a CEO needs, a business leader needs in this kind of unprecedented crisis? And what do you do personally to keep your mind nimble and focused on this kind of situation? What would your advice be to other business leaders?
My advice would be, Matthew, on 2 points: to be positive and innovative. And when I say innovative, I'm not referring to our business, innovative technology, but innovative in the way of thinking, innovative in the way of doing things. And there are many positives, as I said, from all this. For example, I'm witnessing a real reduction in the use of cash. That is a big, big plus. Imagine the hustle of employees at the banks, etc., of using cash. Besides the damage that using cash does to the economy, to factors like money laundering, etc. So the decrease in the use of cash is an exactly positive in the positive direction, and I hope that we will continue to use less cash, come with digital, and the economy would improve a lot. Let me give you an example of what I'm saying, Matthew. I mean, using cash like we do in Malta, because Malta, we use a lot of cash, unfortunately, it affects also the banks. Because once when cash is hoarded, okay, then it is not in the circular flow, and it is not being used, and the banks, they can lend according to the amount of cash that they have. Now, if we don't use that cash, everyone would be better, and that is what is happening now. I mean, today, I'm impressed how everybody is using contactless digital money, etc., which is extremely...
Yes.
Exactly. And that is and these are the things that a businessman, a leader should focus, He should focus on how he can make this situation, so that when it's over, he will be in a better position, better structured as an organization, with more ideas and more importantly, efficient.
Yes, and the crisis has also brought up the reality of this social pact which we have as citizens with government, as consumers, and as businesses. But do you think as well that both in this time of crisis and after the COVID-19 pandemic, the business, there must be a change in the mind frame of businesses as well to step up for the community and create solutions for the community? Do you think that will be a new part of the role of businesses?
Let us put it this way. We always used to talk about social responsibility. Yeah. However, now we've realized that we have to do more when it comes to social responsibility. Just to give you an example, the MDIA, the Malta Digital Innovation Authority, we have announced a reward for applications, technology applications, whereby the application is used to assist the elderly, those that are under quarantine, etc., etc. Those type of initiatives, companies should enter into those type of initiatives. There are other applications which assist directly the health. For example, like contact tracing. One of the duties and the responsibilities of MDIA is that we are consulting with the Ministry of Health when it comes to contact tracing, and we're following contact tracing applications and what's developing, and basically what we're saying is that since there are many European countries who are developing applications, sophisticated applications, we should follow exactly. They are really helpful. They're offering their applications once they put it into place for us for free. The only problem with these type of applications is at the moment that Europe is a bit divided whether they should go for a decentralized system or a centralized system. Some say centralized system is better, whereby the data is kept by the health authorities. Others say no, let's go for a decentralized system and the data is kept by the individual mobile of individuals. So basically what we're doing is that we're following step by step from a technology aspect. These applications, we're ready. We have the infrastructure with Meta ready to use these type of applications. It's just a matter that there are privacy issues which have to be settled even at an EU level,
Thank you very much, Stephen. That was Stephen McCarthy, the CEO of the Malta Digital Innovation Authority. He's just given us some advice, some tips, but also a glimpse into the near future, talking about leaders under crisis during the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very much, and join us again for another interview very soon.